Why do little things seem to irritate you more after 50? Not huge problems, not life falling apart. Just the noise, the interruptions, the waiting, the mess, the small demands that used to be easier to brush off. If this has been happening to you, it does not mean you are becoming difficult. It may mean your mind and body are less willing to carry pressure that once felt normal. In this video, we're going to look at why patience can change after 50 and what may help you feel calmer without blaming yourself. A lot of people notice this shift even if they don't talk about it much. They might not call it impatience. They might say they feel more easily drained or more sensitive, less willing to put up with noise, pressure, clutter, or other people's moods. And often this change can feel confusing. You may think, I never used to be like this. You may feel guilty because something small bothered you more than it should have. Or you may worry that you are becoming grumpy, short-tempered, or less kind. But patience is not just a personality trait. Patience takes energy. To be patient, you have to hold back a reaction. You have to stay calm when something annoys you. You have to adjust when your plans change. You have to listen when you are already tired. You have to make room for someone else's needs, even when your own mind feels full. For many years, you may have done this automatically. You pushed through, smiled, kept the peace, let things slide, and carried more than people realized. But after 50, your capacity can change. Not because you are failing, but because your inner reserves may not refill in quite the same way they used to. Your sleep might not be as deep. Your energy may not be as steady. Your body may need more recovery. Your mind may have less room for constant noise, pressure, and stimulation. And emotionally, you might be carrying more than you used to, such as family changes, health worries, losses, responsibilities, retirement adjustments, concerns about people you love, or questions about what comes next. Even when life looks quieter on the outside, there can be much more happening underneath. So when one more thing asks for your patience, it may not feel like one small thing. It may feel like the final thing on top of a very full mind. That is why your reaction can surprise you. Someone asks a simple question and you feel irritated. The phone rings and your body tightens. A person talks for too long and you feel yourself wanting to escape. A small inconvenience happens and you think, I just can't deal with this today. It may look like impatience, but take a look under the hood and it might well be overload. After 50, many people also become more honest about what drains them. Earlier in life, you may have had more reasons to tolerate things. You just had to keep going, raising children, building a career, supporting a household, caring for others, meeting expectations, staying agreeable, and staying strong. You may have learned to ignore your own limits because there was always something that needed doing. But later in life, something often changes. You begin to notice what costs your peace. You notice which conversations leave you tired. You notice which people take more than they give. You notice how much noise, rushing, clutter, drama, and obligations affect you. And once you notice it, it becomes harder to pretend that you don't. This can feel like impatience, but it may actually be clarity. You are not necessarily becoming less tolerant of life. You may be becoming less tolerant of what quietly wears you down. There is a difference. Of course, this can still be difficult, because impatience can hurt relationships if it comes out too sharply. You may snap at someone, then later think, why did I react like that? You may withdraw because you do not trust yourself to respond calmly. And sometimes the guilt makes the whole thing worse. You tell yourself you should be more patient. You compare yourself to how you used to be. You think, I'm getting grumpy. But self-criticism rarely gives you more patience. Usually it drains you even further. Because now you are not only dealing with irritation, you are also dealing with shame about being irritated. Another thing that makes impatience worse is ignoring the early warning signs. Most people do not suddenly lose patience out of nowhere. There are usually little signals first. You feel tense. You feel rushed. You feel crowded. You feel mentally full. You say yes when you want to say no. You stay in a conversation longer than you have energy for. You keep going when your body is already asking for quiet. And then one small thing tips you over. The problem is not always the small thing. The problem is that you were already near the edge. What helps is not forcing yourself to be endlessly patient. What helps is protecting the conditions that make patience possible. Instead of asking, why am I so impatient now? You might want to ask, what is using up my patience before the day even starts? That question changes everything because patience is a resource. And like any resource, it needs care. Start by noticing the stuff that drains your patience, not in a blaming way, just in an honest way. Ask yourself, what reliably makes me feel tense, rushed, irritated, or trapped? It might be noise, it might be clutter, it might be too many errands in one day, it might be certain conversations, it might be being interrupted, it might be feeling responsible for everyone else's needs. Once you put your finger on what drains you, your reactions stop feeling so mysterious. You start to see a pattern, and patterns are useful because they give you something to work with. Next, build in small pauses before you reach the edge. Not a dramatic routine, just small moments of space. Before you answer a difficult message, pause. Before you say yes to another request, pause. Before you walk into a busy place, sit quietly for a minute. Before a conversation becomes too much, take a breath and soften your shoulders. These pauses give your mind a chance to catch up with your reaction. They create a little space between the feeling and the response. And sometimes that bit of space is enough to keep irritation from turning into regret. Many people after 50 are still living as if they have unlimited capacity. They expect themselves to reply quickly, attend everything, listen to everyone, manage everyone's feelings, and keep to the same pace they had years ago. But patience becomes much harder when your days are packed with things that quietly exhaust you. So choose one demand to soften. Maybe you stop answering non-urgent messages immediately. Maybe you leave more time between appointments. Maybe you reduce one commitment. Maybe you stop having certain conversations when you are already tired. This is not selfish, it's maintenance. You are creating a life where your patience has a better chance of surviving the day. And when impatience does spill out, because sometimes it will, just repair it gently. You might say, "I'm sorry, I sounded sharper than I meant to." Or, "I'm tired today and I reacted too quickly." Or, "I need a moment, but I do want to talk about this calmly." You do not have to shame yourself. You just need to return with honesty. As you get older, your patience may become more selective. You may have less patience for noise, drama, rushing, pretending, or being pulled away from yourself. But you may also have deeper patience for what truly matters, for honesty, for quiet, for meaningful conversations, for people who meet you with respect, for a slower pace, for a life that feels more like your own. So maybe the goal is not to become the endlessly patient person you once tried to be. Maybe the goal is to understand your limits sooner, to protect your peace earlier, to respond before you are depleted, and to stop calling yourself difficult when you are simply tired of living beyond your capacity. Having less patience after 50 does not mean you are becoming unkind. It may mean your mind and body are asking you to live with more honesty, more quiet, more space, more recovery, more careful choices about what gets your energy. And that is not weakness. That is wisdom trying to get your attention. So the next time you feel your patience running thin, try not to begin with blame. Begin with curiosity. Ask yourself, what is really wearing me down here? Then take one small step to reduce the pressure. One pause, one boundary, one quieter moment, one honest adjustment. You are not broken because you cannot tolerate everything you once tolerated. You may simply be learning that peace matters now. And after 50, that is not something to apologize for. It is something to listen to. And if this helped you feel a little more understood, you may want to subscribe to Well After 50, where we talk about the quiet changes that come with this stage of life and how to move through them with more calm, clarity, and self-respect.